Humanity would be wiped from the stars, erased from history as a footnote race if Commander Dennis Clark failed this day. The grizzled commander paced the deck of his flagship, the Indomitable, looking out at the glittering cosmos. The ship's engines hummed, the only sound on the bridge besides Dennis's boots. His mind drifted to the Arcturians. Those condescending, tentacled bastards. The way they sneered down at humans during every Galactic Council meeting, treating them like children, despite humanity's accomplishments. The memory of a recent gathering burned in Dennis's mind. That smug Arcturian leader, Hydrus, dismissing human protests over one-sided trade deals. "I know your place, primitives," Hydrus had said, his beak curling into a smirk. Dennis had stormed out, his face red, his fists balled. But he made a vow that day. Humanity would prove its strength to the galaxy. By force, if needed. A shrill alarm pierced the Indomitable's bridge, snapping Dennis from his thoughts. "Report!" he barked. The sensor officer, a young man with terror in his eyes, responded. "Sir, a massive Arcturian fleet just dropped out of warp near Epsilon Colony. 10 times the size they promised to send to help with the pirate threat." Dennis narrowed his eyes. The Arcturians had claimed they would aid in protecting the human settlement. But this was no defensive force. This was an armada, and Epsilon Colony was nearly defenseless. "Set course to intercept that fleet. Full speed," Dennis ordered. "But, sir," the navigation officer protested, "one ship against an entire Arcturian battle group, it's suicide." Dennis turned to face his crew, his expression hard as stone. "Then it's time we show them what humanity is really made of." He opened a fleet-wide channel and sent a coded signal. A signal that had been planned for, trained for, hoped for in secret for years. All around the Indomitable, space shimmered as 1,000 human warships decloaked, appearing as if from nowhere. Cruisers, destroyers, dreadnoughts, a fleet to rival any in the galaxy. A fleet the Arcturians never knew existed. On the sensor screen, the Arcturian ships suddenly broke off their approach to Epsilon Colony. They swarmed like panicked insects, scrambling to face this new threat. And the fate of humanity now hung by a thread, to be decided in the fires of battle, in the cold, uncaring void of space where only the strong survived. Humanity's survival would depend on the outcome of the next few hours. The Arcturians would not forget this insult, this defiance. They would crush the upstart humans, unless Dennis Clark and his secret fleet could do the unthinkable and smash the arrogant aliens. One thing was certain. The galaxy would never be the same after this day. Light years away from the tense standoff between human and Arcturian fleets, the Galactic Council chambers buzzed with frantic activity. Representatives from dozens of species filled the amphitheater-like room, their voices rising in a cacophony of confusion and accusation. The towering insectoid Kiltar delegate slammed its clawed appendages on the podium, demanding answers. The reptilian saurians hissed their displeasure. Even the normally serene Elysian ambassador looked perturbed. But one seat remained conspicuously empty, that of Hydrus, the Arcturian leader. Suddenly, a shimmering hologram burst to life in the center of the chamber, drawing all eyes and silencing the clamor. The translucent blue image coalesced into the face of Commander Dennis Clark, his expression hard and unyielding. Ignoring the gasps and mutters of the assembled aliens, he began to speak. The room exploded into an uproar. The insectoid delegate pointed an accusing claw at the hologram. Others took up the cry, shouting down the human commander's words, but some, like the Elysian, looked thoughtful, as if weighing the claim. Dennis pressed on, undaunted by the commotion. "We have incontrovertible proof of Arcturian treachery, sensor logs, comms records, eyewitness accounts, but more importantly—" He paused, letting anticipation build. "We have the strength to defend ourselves and our way of life." He nodded to someone off-screen, and his image winked out, replaced by a live tactical feed. The council stared in collective shock at the scene unfolding before them. Against the starry backdrop, a vast Arcturian armada faced off against a defiant formation of human ships. Outnumbered and outgunned, the human fleet nonetheless held its ground, a shining bulwark against the looming Arcturian vessels. Too long has this council dismissed and demeaned humanity. Dennis's disembodied voice rang out over the feed. But no more. Today, we claim our rightful place as equals on the galactic stage. With that, the transmission cut out, plunging the chamber back into momentary darkness and stunned silence. Then, pandemonium. Some delegates cried for sanctions, for humanity to be punished for its insolence in challenging the mighty Arcturians, but others spoke in hushed tones, reassessing what they thought they knew about the upstart race. Amid the furor, a lone figure rose from its seat and quietly exited the chamber, unnoticed in the chaos. Xylar, Hydrus's most trusted advisor and diplomat, strode quickly down the corridor, his normally impassive face etched with worry. As the true scope of the situation sank in, one thought crystallized in his mind with terrible clarity. The bridge of the Indomitable was filled with tension, as Dennis stared down the holographic projection of Hydrus. The Arcturian commander's beak curled into a sneer. "Commander Clark, I must admit you've caught us by surprise, but surely you realize this changes nothing. Surrender now, and perhaps the Council will be lenient." Dennis leaned forward, hands gripping the arms of his chair. "I think we both know that's not going to happen, Hydrus. The days of humanity bowing to Arcturian threats are over." Hydrus scoffed. "You're making a grave mistake, human. You cannot hope to stand against the might of—" The doors to the bridge hissed open, interrupting Hydrus. Xylar, the Arcturian diplomat, burst into the room. He was panting, his normally composed demeanor shattered. "Commander, wait! I have crucial information from the Council." Hydrus whirled on his subordinate, rage twisting his features. "You dare interrupt me?" Dennis watched the exchange, his mind racing. This was an unexpected development. Hydrus seemed to hesitate, his gaze flicking between Xylar and the human commander. Sensing an opportunity, Dennis pressed forward. "It's over, Hydrus. Stand down and let's resolve this peacefully. There's no need for bloodshed." The silence stretched, the fate of the colony hanging in the balance. Dennis could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Finally, Hydrus growled, his words dripping with venom. "This isn't over, human. You've won this battle, but the war is just beginning." The hologram winked out, and the main screen showed the Arcturian fleet beginning to turn, preparing to jump away. A cheer went up from the human crew, the tension broken. But Dennis remained stoic, his eyes fixed on the retreating alien ships. He knew this was just the beginning. The Arcturians would not forget this humiliation, and humanity would need to be ready for the inevitable retaliation. The path ahead would be long and difficult, fraught with danger and uncertainty. The Indomitable shuddered as it docked at the sprawling orbital platform above Earth. Dennis strode down the ramp, his boots echoing in the cavernous hangar. A trio of armed guards snapped to attention, escorting him into a waiting shuttle. The craft descended through wispy clouds, the blue-green curve of Earth filling the viewports. Dennis gazed at the planet, a mixture of pride and apprehension churning in his gut. He had sworn to protect humanity, but had his actions at Epsilon Colony put them at even greater risk? The shuttle touched down at UNSC headquarters in Geneva, and Dennis was ushered into the towering glass and steel structure. His footsteps rang on polished marble as he was led into the council chambers, a vast circular room dominated by a gleaming mahogany table. Dozens of eyes turned to him as he entered, some filled with admiration, others with doubt. Admiral Mikhailov, a bear of a man with a grizzled beard, stood at the head of the table. "Commander Clark," he rumbled, "your defense of the colony was commendable, but revealing our hidden fleet, that was a dangerous gambit." Dennis met the Admiral's gaze unflinchingly. "With respect, sir, the Arcturians left us no choice. They were poised to slaughter our people. We had to demonstrate our strength." Murmurs rippled through the room. A severe-looking woman leaned forward, her eyes hard. "And in doing so, you've provoked the Arcturians and alarmed the Council. They're demanding answers. even threatening sanctions. Dennis slammed a fist on the table, the bang echoing like a gunshot. Then I'll give them answers. I'll make them see that humanity will no longer cower in the shadow of alien powers. It's time we took our rightful place in the galaxy. The council erupted into argument, voices rising in a cacophony of debate. Admiral Mikhailov called for order, his voice booming over the din. Hours crawled by as the council deliberated, rehashing every detail of the Epsilon colony incident. Dennis paced like a caged lion, his patience fraying with each passing minute. Finally, as Earth's sun dipped below the horizon, painting the chamber in shades of orange and red, a decision was reached. Admiral Mikhailov fixed Dennis with a somber stare. The UNSC has decided to support your actions, Commander. You will return to the Galactic Council to make our case. But know this, the fate of our entire species rests on your shoulders. Fail, and humanity may be forever shunned or subjugated by the galactic community. Dennis nodded, the weight of the task settling onto his shoulders like a physical burden. He saluted crisply, then turned on his heel and marched from the chamber, his mind already racing with the challenges ahead. Convincing the fractious Galactic Council to accept humanity as equals would be no easy feat. The Arcturians would doubtless seek to paint them as aggressors, warmongers unfit to stand among the stars. Every word, every gesture would be crucial. But Dennis Clark had not come this far to see his species relegated to the footnotes of galactic history. He would fight for humanity's future, no matter the odds, no matter the cost. He boarded the shuttle back to the orbital platform, stars glittering cold and distant beyond the viewports. The Indomitable awaited him, a sleek dagger ready to cut through whatever the cosmos threw at them. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with peril. But one thing was crystal clear in Dennis's mind as Earth receded behind him. Dennis stood in his quarters aboard the Indomitable, his mind awash with plans and possibilities for his upcoming return to the Galactic Council. The weight of humanity's future pressed down on him, a physical presence that tightened his shoulders and set his jaw. He paced the small room, his footsteps echoing off the metal walls. A chime at the door interrupted his brooding. Dennis frowned, not expecting any visitors. He crossed to the door and tapped the control panel. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing an unexpected sight. Xyler, the Arcturian diplomat, stood in the corridor, his tentacles tucked neatly behind his back. Dennis's hand instinctively twitched towards his sidearm, memories of the recent standoff still fresh. "Commander Clark," Xyler said, his voice calm and even, "may I have a moment of your time?" Dennis hesitated, suspicion warring with curiosity. Finally he stepped aside, allowing Xyler to enter. The door slid shut behind the Arcturian with a soft click. "What do you want, Xyler?" Dennis asked, his tone guarded. "If this is about the standoff—" Xyler held up a tentacle, silencing Dennis. "I come with a warning, Commander. Hydrus is not one to take defeat lightly. Even now he gathers support among the Council to have humanity sanctioned, or worse." Dennis crossed his arms, his brow furrowed. "Why tell me this? Aren't you Hydrus's right hand?" Xyler sighed, his shoulders sagging. "I serve the Arcturian people, not Hydrus's agenda. Conflict between our races will only lead to ruin for both sides." Dennis paced the room, his mind racing. He stopped, turning to face Xyler. "What do you propose, then?" Xyler leaned forward, his eyes glinting. "An alliance. If we convince the Council that humans and Arcturians work together, it will undermine Hydrus's arguments and show that humanity is ready to be a cooperative member of the galactic community." Dennis scoffed. "And how do we do that? The Arcturians just tried to attack our colony." A smile played at the corners of Xyler's beak. By embarking on a joint mission, a show of unity that the Council cannot ignore. He pulled a datapad from his robes and held it out to Dennis. Dennis took the datapad, studying the star map displayed on its surface. "There's a remote, uninhabited planet in neutral space," Xyler explained, pointing to a small dot on the map. "If we establish a joint human-Arcturian research base there, it will send a powerful message." Dennis looked up from the datapad, His eyes narrowed. The plan had merit, but trusting an Arcturian, especially one so close to Hydrus, was a risk. But what choice did he have? Xyla was right. If humanity was to have any hope of standing as equals in the galactic community, they needed allies. "All right, Xyla," Dennis said, handing back the datapad. "Let's do it, but if this is a trick—" Xyla held up his tentacles in a placating gesture. "I assure you, Commander, my intentions are sincere. The future of both our races depends on this alliance." As Xyla turned to leave, Dennis couldn't shake the feeling that he was stepping into uncharted territory. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing was clear: the fate of humanity hung in the balance. He watched the door slide shut behind Xyla, the weight of responsibility settling heavy on his shoulders. Dennis gripped the arms of the captain's chair as the Unity sped through the void, stars streaking past the viewports. Beside him, Xyla pored over a datapad, his tentacles flicking across the screen as he reviewed the mission parameters. The bridge hummed with activity, a symphony of beeps and chatter from the mixed human and Arcturian crew. At the helm, a lithe Arcturian ensign deftly maneuvered the ship, her tentacles dancing across the controls. The comms officer, a burly human with a thick beard, monitored the channels, his brow furrowed in concentration. As they approached New Hope, a small, unassuming dot against the starry backdrop, Dennis felt a swell of pride. In mere weeks, they had accomplished what many thought impossible, a genuine partnership between two races once poised on the brink of war. The planet grew larger in the view screen, a mottled sphere of greens and blues. "Preparing to enter orbit," the Arcturian helmsman reported, her voice musical. Dennis nodded, leaning forward. But before he could speak, the bridge exploded into chaos. Alarms shrieked, red lights flashing. The sensor officer, a wiry human with wide eyes, spun in his chair. "Commander, we've got incoming. A large fleet bearing Arcturian signatures." Dennis shot to his feet, his heart pounding. He whirled to face Xyla, anger and confusion warring on his face. "What's the meaning of this? You said this was a peaceful mission." Xyla looked equally shocked, his tentacles writhing. "It is. I have no idea who—" A harsh beep cut him off. The view screen flickered and Hydrus's sneering face filled the display. Dennis's blood ran cold. "Well, well," Hydrus drawled. "What do we have here, a cozy little alliance, Dennis stepped forward, his jaw clenched. "Hydrus, I should have known you'd never let this go." Hydrus barked a laugh, cruel and mocking. "Did you really think I would allow this abomination of a partnership to continue? No, I think it's time to remind the galaxy of the true order of things." He turned his gaze to Xyla, eyes narrowing. "And you, traitor, you'll pay for your betrayal." Xyla drew himself up, his voice steady. "The only betrayal here is yours, Hydrus. Betrayal of the Arcturian people, of the principles of the Galactic Council." Hydrus scoffed, waving a dismissive tentacle. "Enough talk. You have one chance, human. Surrender or be destroyed." Dennis glanced at Xyla, saw the resolve in the Arcturian's eyes. He turned back to Hydrus, his voice like steel. "I don't think so. We've come too far to back down now." With a stab of his finger, he cut the transmission. The bridge fell silent for a heartbeat. Then Dennis spun to his crew, his orders crisp and sharp. The crew leapt into action, hands flying over consoles, voices raised in terse reports. Dennis sank back into his chair, his mind racing. This was it, the moment of truth. Everything they had worked for, the fragile peace they had built, hung in the balance. The die was cast, and the fate of humanity itself lay in the hands of the Unity and her valiant crew. The Arcturian fleet grew larger on the view screen, a swarm of sleek, deadly ships bristling with weapons. The Unity, though advanced, was hopelessly outgunned. But Dennis refused to let despair take hold. "Shields up," he barked. "Charge weapons, helm, bring us about. We'll face them head-on." The crew responded with crisp efficiency, the ship humming as it powered up for battle. On the tactical display, the Arcturian formation loomed, a predatory beast closing in for the kill. Dennis leaned forward, his eyes hard. "Hail them." The comms officer nodded, his fingers dancing across his console. A moment later, Hydra's face reappeared, twisted with malice. "Come to beg for mercy, human." Dennis's reply was cold as the void. "Hydras, think carefully about what you're doing. Attack us and you risk the wrath of the entire Galactic Council. Is your pride worth the destruction of the Arcturian people?" For a moment, Hydras's confidence seemed to waver, but it passed like a fleeting shadow replaced by a sneer. "The Council is weak, a relic of a bygone era. It's time for a new order, one where the strong rule as they should. And we Arcturians are the strongest of all." Xyla stepped forward, his voice heavy with sorrow. "Hydras, please, don't do this. It's not too late to turn back from this path." Hydras's eyes flashed with rage. "Silence, traitor. You've chosen your side and you'll die with them." "Commander," the sensor officer called out, his voice tense, "they're locking weapons." Dennis nodded, his face grim. "So be it. All hands brace for impact." He turned to Xyla, saw the pain and resolve etched in the Arcturian's face. In that moment he knew they were more than allies. They were brothers, united against a common foe. "We'll get through this," Dennis said, his voice low. "Together." Xyla met his gaze, his tentacles curling in a gesture of solidarity. "Together." But the crew held fast, their faces set with determination. They would not yield, not while a single one of them drew breath. For this was more than a battle between ships. It was a struggle for the very soul of the galaxy, a fight to prove that unity could triumph over division, that hope could prevail against hate. And as the unity plunged into the heart of the Arcturian formation, weapons blazing, Dennis knew that whatever happened, they would face it as one. Humans and Arcturians side by side, bound by a cause greater than any one race. In the crucible of battle, a new future would be forged, one where the stars belonged to all and peace was more than a fleeting dream. It was a future worth fighting for, worth dying for, and fight they would to the very last. The Unity shook violently as another barrage of Arcturian fire slammed into her shields. Sparks erupted from overloaded consoles, the acrid smell of burnt circuitry filling the air. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the strained faces of the crew. "Shields down to 60%, the tactical officer shouted over the din of battle. "We can't take much more of this." Dennis gripped the arms of his chair, his knuckles white. The Arcturian ships swarmed around them like angry hornets, their weapons pounding the Unity relentlessly. "Reroute power from non-essential systems," he ordered, "and get me a targeting solution on their lead ship." The crew scrambled to obey, their fingers flying over their consoles. On the view screen, Hydras's flagship loomed, a behemoth bristling with guns. "Locked on," the weapons officer reported. A lance of pure energy erupted from the Unity's forward cannon, spearing the Arcturian ship's shields. The enemy vessel shuddered, its hull plating crumpling under the onslaught. Dennis cursed under his breath. They were being torn apart, piece by piece. At this rate, they wouldn't last another minute. He turned to Xyla, saw the desperation in the Arcturians' eyes. They both knew the odds they faced, knew that their chances of survival were slim to none. But in that moment, Dennis saw something else in Xyla's gaze, a glimmer of hope, of defiance in the face of certain doom. And he knew what he had to do. "Helm!" he shouted. "Plot a course straight for Hydras's ship, full speed." The helmsman stared at him, her eyes wide. "Sir?" "Oh, you heard me," Dennis snapped. "We're going to ram them." A stunned silence fell over the bridge. Then, slowly, a grim determination settled over the crew. They knew what was at stake, knew that their sacrifice could mean the difference between victory and defeat. Dennis nodded, his jaw set. He turned to Xyla, clasped the Arcturian's tentacle in a warrior's grip. "It's been an honor," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't have asked for a better ally or a better friend." Xyla returned the grip, his eyes shining. "The honor has been mine, Dennis Clark. May our names be remembered in the annals of history." Dennis smiled, a fierce, feral grin. Then he turned back to the view screen, to the looming bulk of Hydrus's ship. The Unity surged forward, her engines screaming. The Arcturian ship scattered before her like leaves before a hurricane. Weapons fire stitched across her hull, tearing great gouts of metal and composites from her frame. But she did not falter, did not turn aside. For she was more than a ship, more than a vessel of metal and circuitry. She was an embodiment of an ideal, a symbol of unity in the face of adversity, of hope in the darkest of hours. And as she plunged towards Hydrus's flagship, her crew standing tall and proud at their posts, Dennis knew that whatever happened, their sacrifice would not be in vain. They would strike a blow this day that would echo through the ages, a blow for freedom, for justice, for the right of all beings to live in peace. A blow for the future. And as the distance closed, as the Arcturian ship filled the view screen, growing larger with each passing second, Dennis closed his eyes, a sense of peace washing over him. They had done all they could, given all they had. The rest was in the hands of fate. The Unity slammed into Hydrus's ship with the force of 1,000 suns, the two mighty vessels crumpling like tin cans. Explosions ripped through their hulls, great gouts of flame and debris spewing into the void. And on the Unity's bridge, as the world dissolved into fire and darkness, Dennis Clark smiled. The Unity shuddered as another volley of Arcturian fire slammed into her shields. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles, the acrid stench of burnt circuitry filling the air. Dennis gritted his teeth, his eyes locked on the tactical display. Hydrus's ships swarmed around them like angry hornets, their weapons pounding the Unity relentlessly. "Xyla," he barked. "Coordinate with engineering. Reroute all available power to shields and weapons." The Arcturian diplomat nodded, his tentacles flying over his console. "Aye, Commander." The Unity's cannons roared, lancing out at the nearest Arcturian cruiser. The enemy ship staggered, its shields flickering, but it did not fall. For every ship they managed to disable, two more seemed to take its place. Hydrus's fleet was vast, a seemingly endless swarm of gleaming ships and bristling weapons. As the battle raged on, the sensor officer suddenly cried out, "New contact bearing 275 Mark 30. It's massive." Dennis frowned, his heart sinking. What now, more Arcturian reinforcements? But as the contact drew closer, it became clear that it was not an Arcturian ship at all. It was a colossal vessel, easily dwarfing the largest ships in Hydrus's fleet. Its hull was a deep, matte black, bristling with advanced weaponry, unlike anything Dennis had ever seen. Dennis exchanged a wary glance with Xyla. The Zorgans were a reclusive, technologically advanced race that had long remained neutral in galactic affairs. Their sudden appearance was as unexpected as it was unnerving. Craxus continued, his voice resonating through the bridge. "We have seen the bravery and determination of the humans, and the honor of those Arcturians who stand with them. We have also witnessed the treachery and deceit of those who would seek to undermine the principles of the Galactic Council." There was a tense pause, the only sound the distant thunder of battle. Then Craxus declared, "The Zorgan Empire hereby declares its support for the Human Arcturian Alliance. We will not stand by and allow this aggression to continue." With those words, a swarm of Zorgan fighters poured from the massive ship, their sleek black forms darting towards Hydrus's fleet with devastating precision. Arcturian ships exploded under the onslaught, their hulls shattering, their crews consumed by the cold vacuum of space. The tide of battle had turned in an instant, the hunters becoming the hunted. Dennis and Xyla watched in awe as Hydrus's fleet, now outmatched and outgunned, began to retreat. Ships limped away, trailing debris and sparks, their once proud formations shattered. Dennis opened a channel to the Zorgan warship, his voice rough with emotion. "Warlord Craxus, we thank you. Your intervention saved countless lives today." On the view screen, Craxus inclined his head, his dark eyes glinting. "The Zorgon Empire has long respected the potential of humanity. Today you have proven yourselves worthy allies. May this be the beginning of a new era of cooperation and peace. As the Zorgon ships pulled away, escorting the battered Unity back to New Hope for repairs, Dennis sat back in his chair, his mind reeling. The galaxy, it seemed, would never be the same. The balance of power had shifted in a single decisive battle. New alliances had been forged, old enmities shattered. And at the heart of it all, a single human commander and his Arcturian ally, their fates now inextricably linked with the destiny of the stars themselves. The Unity glided into orbit around the Galactic Council's space station, its battle-scarred hull a testament to the fierce fighting at New Hope. Dennis and Xylar stood side by side on the bridge, watching as the massive structure grew larger in the view screen. "Are you ready for this?" Dennis asked, glancing at his Arcturian ally. Xylar's tentacles twitched, betraying his nervousness. "As ready as I'll ever be, but with the Zorgons on our side, I believe we have a real chance to change things." The airlock hissed open, and the two stepped out into the bustling corridors of the station. Delegates from 100 different races hurried past, their whispers and stares following the unlikely pair. As they entered the council chambers, the murmuring grew louder. Representatives of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations filled the tiered seats, their eyes fixed on the human and Arcturian standing before them. Hydrus, seated in the Arcturian delegation's box, surged to his feet. His once pristine uniform was tattered, his face haggard from the defeat at New Hope. "This proves nothing," he shouted, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. "The humans have manipulated the Zorgons, just as they manipulated Xylar and his traitorous faction." Murmurs of dissent rippled through the chamber, but before Dennis could respond, a towering figure rose from the observers' section. Warlord Kraxus, his black armor gleaming under the lights, fixed Hydrus with a piercing stare. "The Zorgon Empire is not so easily manipulated, Hydrus. We have made our decision based on the actions and character of those involved. It is clear to us that the humans and their Arcturian allies represent the future of this galaxy." Dennis stepped forward, his voice ringing clear. "Esteemed members of the Council, we come before you not as conquerors, but as partners. The human-Arcturian alliance seeks not dominance, but cooperation. We envision a galaxy where all races work together, where we face challenges as one." Hydrus seemed to deflate under the weight of Dennis's words and the shifting tide of the Council's support. I will need to consult with my government." Dennis nodded. "Of course, but know that the offer of peace and cooperation extends to all races, including the Arcturians." As the session ended, delegates swarmed around Dennis and Xylar, offering handshakes, tentacle clasps, and words of support. The chamber buzzed with an energy not felt in decades, a sense that a new era was dawning. But as Dennis basked in the moment, he knew the real work was just beginning. Forging a new galactic order would be a long and arduous process, fraught with challenges and setbacks. Yet with the Zorgons and the progressive Arcturians at their side, and a growing chorus of support from the Council, humanity was ready to take its place as a leader among the stars. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the galaxy would never be the same. Dennis stood atop a ridgeline on New Hope, the wind whipping at his hair as he surveyed the bustling construction site below. The joint human-Arcturian research base was taking shape, a gleaming testament to the new spirit of cooperation that had taken hold in the galaxy. But even as he watched the workers scurrying about, humans and Arcturians side by side, Dennis couldn't shake a sense of unease. The urgent message from Earth still weighed on his mind. A mysterious signal from the far reaches of uncharted space. The UNSC was assembling a team to investigate, and they wanted him to lead it. Him, the face of the new human diplomacy. "Commander Clark," a voice called out. Dennis turned to see a young human ensign hurrying towards him, a datapad in hand. "Sir, Xylar is requesting your presence in the command center." Dennis nodded, casting one last look at the construction site before heading towards the prefabricated structure that served as the base's nerve center. Inside, He found Xyla hunched over a holographic display, his tentacles manipulating the glowing controls. The Arcturian looked up as Dennis entered. "Ah, Dennis, I trust you've heard the news from Earth." Dennis sighed, running a hand through his hair. "The mysterious signal, yes, they want me to lead the investigation." Xyla cocked his head. "And will you?" Dennis hesitated, torn. The work here on New Hope was crucial, a delicate balance of trust and cooperation. But the lure of the unknown, the chance to unravel a mystery that could change the course of galactic history. "I don't know, Xyla. The base, the Alliance, there's still so much work to be done here." Xyla placed a tentacle on Dennis's shoulder. "The base will be fine, Dennis. We've laid a strong foundation both literally and figuratively. This is an opportunity you can't pass up." Dennis paced the room, his mind racing. Xyla was right. If he turned down this mission, he'd always wonder what he might have discovered out there in the vast expanse of space. He turned to Xyla, his decision made. "I'll do it. I'll lead the mission, but I'm trusting you to keep things running smoothly here." Xyla smiled, a rare sight for an Arcturian. "You have my word, Dennis. New Hope is in good hands." As Dennis prepared to depart, packing his few belongings and reviewing the mission parameters, a commotion outside drew his attention. He stepped out of his quarters to see a sleek Zorgon shuttle touching down on the landing pad, its engines whining as they powered down. The shuttle's ramp lowered, and a familiar figure emerged. Warlord Craxus, his black armor glinting in the sunlight, strode towards Dennis. "Commander Clark," he rumbled in greeting. "I hear you're embarking on a mission into the unknown." Dennis nodded, surprised by the Zorgon leader's presence. "Yes, a mysterious signal. The UNSC believes it could be of great importance." Craxus smiled, a glint in his eye. "Then perhaps you would welcome some company. The Zorgon Empire has advanced long-range scanners that could be of use in your mission." Dennis blinked, taken aback by the offer. A joint human-Zorgon expedition. It was unheard of. But the more he thought about it, the more sense it made. The Zorgon's technology was far beyond anything the UNSC had. "We would be honored, Warlord Craxus," Dennis said, extending his hand. Craxus grasped it firmly. "Then let us waste no time. The mysteries of the cosmos await." As the joint expedition set out, the human and Zorgon crews working side by side to prepare for the journey ahead, Dennis couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed in such a short time. Just months ago, humanity was on the brink of war with the Arcturians, their very survival hanging in the balance. Now they were leading a new era of galactic cooperation, setting out to explore the unknown with allies they never could have imagined. The journey was long and fraught with challenges. Bizarre spatial anomalies sent their instruments haywire, forcing them to navigate by instinct and guile. Treacherous asteroid fields tested the skills of their pilots, the rocks whipping past the viewports in a dizzying blur. At one point, they even had a tense standoff with a hostile alien race, their ships bristling with weapons as they demanded the expedition turn back. But Dennis and Craxus stood firm, their combined resolve and diplomatic savvy winning the day. Through it all, the human and Zorgon crew worked together seamlessly, their differences forgotten in the face of the challenges they faced. They were a team, united in purpose and determination. And then finally, they arrived at the coordinates of the signal. It was coming from a massive structure, a construct of twisting metal and pulsing light that hung in the void like a jewel against the velvet backdrop of space. As they approached, the structure began to glow and hum, energy crackling along its surface. Dennis and Craxus exchanged a glance, the same thought running through their minds. Whatever lay within this enigmatic beacon, they knew it would change the course of the galaxy, and their lives forever. The shuttle glided into the cavernous hangar of the ancient structure, settling onto the deck with a gentle thud. Dennis and Craxus were the first to disembark, their boots ringing on the metal floor as they stepped out into the unknown. The hangar was vast, easily large enough to accommodate a dozen ships the size of their own, but it was the walls that drew their attention. They were covered in intricate carvings, alien glyphs and symbols that seemed to pulse with an inner light. "Incredible," Dennis breathed, running his hand over the nearest wall. "I've never seen anything like it." Craxus nodded, his eyes scanning the room. "Nor have I, and I have seen much in my travels across the stars." They assembled their teams, a mix of human and Zorgon scientists and soldiers. With Dennis and Craxus at the lead, they set off into the depths of the structure, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. The corridors twisted and turned, a labyrinth of metal and light. At times the walls seemed to shift and change, as if the very structure was alive, responding to their presence. They came to a massive chamber, its ceiling lost in the shadows high above. In the center of the room stood a towering machine, a column of pulsing energy that stretched from floor to ceiling. They approached the machine cautiously, their instruments whirring and beeping as they tried to make sense of the readings. But before they could get too close, a booming voice filled the chamber. Dennis and Craxus whirled, their weapons drawn, but there was no one there. The voice seemed to come from the very walls themselves. "Who are you?" Dennis called out, his voice echoing in the vastness of the chamber. "I am the Guardian," the voice replied, "the keeper of the Nexus." Craxus stepped forward, his eyes narrowed. "The Nexus, what is this place?" "A crossroads," the Guardian said, "a junction between worlds, between realities. And you, travelers, have been chosen." Dennis felt a chill run down his spine. Chosen? For what? "To shape the future," the Guardian intoned. "To wield the power of the Nexus, to bring balance to the chaos." The machine in the center of the room began to glow brighter, the energy within it swirling and coalescing. Dennis and Craxus exchanged a glance, understanding dawning in their eyes. This was it, the moment they had been sent here for, the reason behind the mysterious signal that had drawn them across the stars. They stepped forward, ready to embrace their destiny, to take the power of the Nexus and use it for the good of all, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together as allies, as friends, as the future of the galaxy. The energy swirled around them, engulfing them, filling them with a power beyond anything they had ever known. And in that moment, they saw it all. The past, the present, the future, the infinite possibilities that lay before them, the countless worlds that hung in the balance. It was up to them now, to shape the destiny of the galaxy, to bring peace, prosperity, and unity to all. And as the power of the Nexus coursed through their veins, Dennis and Craxus knew that they would not fail. They could not. For the fate of everything hung in the balance. The chamber shook as the energy of the Nexus surged through Dennis and Craxus, their bodies glowing with an ethereal light. Around them, the human and Zorgon crew stared in awe, their instruments forgotten as they witnessed the birth of something new. Dennis felt the power coursing through him, a rush of knowledge and understanding that took his breath away. He saw the threads of the universe laid bare, the intricate web of cause and effect that shaped the destiny of worlds. Beside him, Craxus stood tall, his eyes blazing with the same inner fire. The Zorgon leader had always been a formidable presence, but now, infused with the energy of the Nexus, he was something more. "The path ahead will not be easy," the Guardian's voice echoed in their minds. "The power you now wield comes with a great responsibility. You must use it wisely, for the good of all." Dennis and Craxus nodded, their expressions solemn. They understood the weight of the task before them, the magnitude of the choice they had made. But they also knew that they were not alone. They had each other, and the support of their crews, their allies, their friends. Together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together they would forge a new future for the galaxy. As the energy of the Nexus subsided, the chamber returning to its eerie calm, Dennis and Craxus turned to face their crew. The humans and Zorgons looked back at them, their faces a mix of wonder and determination. "We have been given a great gift," Dennis said, his voice ringing with conviction. "A chance to make a real difference, to shape the course of history." Craxus nodded, his hand resting on the hilt of his blade. "But it will not be without sacrifice, without struggle. We must be ready for whatever lies ahead. The crew nodded, their resolve hardening. They had come this far, had faced down the unknown and emerged victorious. They would not falter now. Dennis activated his comm, his voice broadcasting to the ships waiting outside the structure. "This is Commander Dennis Clark. We have made contact with the source of the signal. The mission has changed. We are no longer just explorers, but guardians of the future." He paused, his eyes meeting Craxus's. "We will be returning to New Hope to plan our next move. But know this, from this day forward, we are all part of something greater, something that will change the galaxy forever." As they made their way back to the shuttle, the ancient structure seeming to watch them go with silent approval, Dennis couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The power of the Nexus hummed within him, a constant reminder of the responsibility he now bore, the responsibility they all bore. But he also felt a sense of hope, of possibility. With this power, with the alliances they had forged and the bonds they had built, anything was possible. A new era had dawned, and they were at the forefront, ready to lead the charge into a brighter tomorrow. The shuttle lifted off, angling up through the hangar and out into the star-strewn void. Behind them, the ancient structure receded, becoming a glimmering speck against the darkness. But its presence lingered, a reminder of the journey that had brought them here, of the destiny that awaited them. Dennis looked out at the infinite expanse of space, feeling the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders, but he also felt the strength of those around him, the unbreakable bonds of friendship and alliance. Together they would face the unknown. Together they would shape the future. And as the shuttle plotted a course back to New Hope, back to the beginning of their journey, Dennis knew that nothing would ever be the same. The game had changed, the stakes had been raised, and they were ready to meet the challenge head-on. Dennis and Craxus strode through the towering entrance of the ancient progenitor structure, weapons at the ready. Their footsteps echoed through the cavernous halls as they led their team deeper into the facility. Lights flickered to life as they passed, illuminating intricate carvings and glowing consoles that hummed with unknown energy. "I've never seen anything like this," Dennis muttered, running his hand along a smooth metallic wall. "This technology is beyond anything we've encountered, even the Zorgons." Craxus nodded, his eyes wide with wonder. The progenitors were truly a remarkable species. To think they once guided and protected the galaxy. As they ventured further, the team emerged into a vast circular chamber. Towering machines lined the walls, pulsing with an eerie blue light. Energy cores thrummed with power, casting an otherworldly glow throughout the room. Suddenly a shimmering hologram flickered to life in the center of the chamber. It coalesced into the form of a tall, slender being with luminous eyes and flowing robes. "Greetings," the figure spoke, its voice resonating through the room. "I am the custodian, an artificial intelligence created by the progenitors to watch over this facility." The custodian's expression turned solemn. The progenitors were once the guardians of the galaxy, using their advanced technology to maintain peace and balance. But they foresaw a great threat coming, a darkness that would consume all life. Unable to stop it themselves, they left this facility as a failsafe, a way for the younger races to defend themselves when the time came. Craxus frowned. "A darkness? What kind of—" A piercing alarm cut him off, echoing through the chamber. The custodian's projection flickered, distorting. "They are coming," it warned, its voice urgent. "The Devourers. They have sensed the activation of this facility and seek to destroy it." Dennis felt a chill run down his spine. "Devourers? Who are they?" But there was no time for answers. The team raced back through the winding corridors, their hearts pounding. They burst from the entrance, sprinting towards their waiting ships. And then they saw it. A massive fleet dropping out of hyperspace, filling the void with their twisted, organic-looking ships. They were unlike anything Dennis had ever seen, pulsing with a sickly, malevolent energy. "By the stars," Craxus whispered, his face pale. "The Devourers, the ancient enemy of the progenitors." There was no time to lose. Dennis and Kraxus leapt into their ships, shouting orders to their crew. The human Zorgon fleet moved to engage, weapons charging, shields raised. But it was like throwing pebbles at a tidal wave. The Devourers' ships tore through their defenses like they were made of paper, their weapons slicing through hulls and shields with terrifying ease. One by one, the human and Zorgon ships winked out of existence, consumed by the ravenous horde. "Dennis?" Kraxus's voice crackled over the comm, strained and desperate. "The facility, we have to overload the power core. It's our only chance." Dennis closed his eyes, his heart heavy. He knew what that meant. They would have to sacrifice everything, but if it could stop the Devourers... "Do it," he said, his voice grim. "Overload the core. I'll buy you as much time as I can." Kraxus said nothing, but Dennis could feel the weight of his friend's gaze. They both knew this was the end. The Zorgon ship peeled away, racing back towards the progenitor facility. Dennis turned his own vessel to face the oncoming horde, weapons blazing. He would hold them back for as long as he could. Seconds ticked by, each one an eternity. Dennis watched as his shields dwindled, as the hull of his ship cracked and strained. Just a little longer. And then, a blinding flash lit up the void. A searing wave of energy that washed over everything. The ancient facility detonated, its power core unleashing a cataclysmic blast. Dennis shielded his eyes, his ship groaning as the shockwave hit. Consoles sparked and smoked, alarms blaring. But through the viewscreen he could see the Devourer fleet reeling, their ships tumbling and breaking apart under the onslaught. For a moment he dared to hope. Perhaps it had been enough. Perhaps they had bought the galaxy a chance. But as the light faded and the sensors cleared, his heart sank. The Devourers were damaged, yes, but not destroyed. Their ships were already righting themselves, their weapons coming back online. And Kraxus, there was no sign of the Zorgon ship. Dennis closed his eyes, grief and despair washing over him. His friend, his ally, gone in a blaze of self-sacrifice. With a heavy heart, Dennis turned his limping ship towards home. The progenitor facility was lost, and with it, perhaps their best hope against this new threat. But he couldn't give up. He wouldn't. As he set a course for the Galactic Council, his mind raced with plans and strategies. The galaxy had to be warned. They had to prepare. For the Devourers were coming, and the war for survival had only just begun. Dennis stood before the Galactic Council, his uniform still stained with the blood and grime of battle. The assembled representatives murmured and whispered as he took the podium, their faces etched with concern and fear. They had all seen the reports, the chilling footage of the Devourers' attack. They knew the threat that loomed over them all. Dennis took a deep breath, his gaze sweeping over the room. He saw fear, yes, but also determination, resolve. The races of the galaxy, once divided, now stood united in the face of annihilation. "Esteemed members of the Council," he began, his voice ringing out clear and strong, "we stand on the brink of the greatest challenge our galaxy has ever faced. The Devourers, an ancient and terrible foe, have returned. They seek nothing less than the total destruction of all life, the consumption of every world and every star." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But we will not let that happen. We will not go quietly into the night. We will fight with every resource, every ship, every brave soul willing to stand against the darkness." Dennis thought of Kraxus, of his sacrifice. He thought of the countless lives already lost and the countless more at stake. His fists clenched at his sides. "It will not be easy. The road ahead will be long and hard, fraught with sacrifice and sorrow. But we have no choice. We fight or we die, and I, for one, choose to fight." He looked out over the sea of faces, beings from 100 different worlds, all united in this moment. Together we can face this threat. Together we can drive back the Devourers and safeguard our galaxy for generations to come. It will take all of us, human, Zorgon, Arcturian, and every race beyond. But if we stand as one, if we fight as one, then there is no force in the universe that can stop us. As the council erupted into thunderous applause, as the representatives surged to their feet in a show of unity and determination, Dennis felt a flicker of hope amid the darkness. And perhaps, just perhaps, that would be enough. Or so Dennis allowed himself to hope, even as the shadow of the Devourers loomed large over them all. The fight for the very survival of all they held dear had begun, and failure was not an option. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.